Hey everyone, this is Dan with the Spiritual Underground Podcast, coming to you once again from the wood shop with live face-to-face energy. I don't know if there really is a difference, but I feel like there is, and I much more prefer doing this when I can look across the table at somebody's eyes and listen rather than look into the screen. I've actually done a couple of these very early on before the COVID thing and the Zoom popularity happened, and I did them on an audio-only format where all we were doing was sitting at computers on telephones and you couldn't even see the other person. But I don't know that it matters all that much. I much prefer this. DTMWW.net, my little handyman woodworking business. If you're in the Louisville metropolitan area, it's 502-292-7444. And 12-step spiritual recovery. That is a lot of letters, and it's a very powerful program. It takes a lot of letters to describe something like that. It's a book by James Christopher Cone. You can get it at Amazon. It is the 12 steps for those who do not traditionally fit in the 12-step fellowship. It is for those who are currently in a 12-step fellowship and are looking for a little deeper dive. And it is also for folks who just say, I hear it all the time. I just couldn't get it in AA. I just couldn't feel it. I couldn't do that. Well, here's the same tools with a different flavor. They are powerful tools. I watch it change and transform people's lives on a regular basis. It will work for you too, whoever you are. All you got to do is give it a chance. People spend a lot of money in self-help programs and going to therapists and various other things and get medications to make them feel better. And this system works and is virtually free. 12-step spiritual recovery, James Christopher Cone, comes in a few different ways. You can get a big full volume, or you can get it in volume 1 and volume 2. You can hear a few chapters of it on this podcast if you just want to get a taste for it. There's some recordings of a few chapters, and you can get a Kindle version. So check it out. I always think of ways to introduce my guests. I never do really have anything planned, but usually when somebody walks in, I remember one thing I do. I remember where I met them. I have a thing, remember people's names, and I have a picture, a photograph kind of picture of where I've met most everybody that I know. I know where that spot was, like kind of like when they say, where were you when the Challenger exploded? I remember when I meet people. And I can tell you where I was when the Challenger exploded too. I met Katherine at the TSSR, and I don't remember. There's a few of you that came to some Spiritual Underground birthday meetings before TSSR came in. Did you ever come to one of those? Because when we opened it up to females, no. Some few people trickled in that I later met in TSSR, and I was thinking if maybe my memory had failed me. So at the downtown at the early meetings, right? No, you started at the Brook, didn't you?
Yeah, I started.
My picture is in the Brook, and I was thinking it was longer than that.
No,
But we've been at the Brook a lot longer than of course, that's now getting to be a year, 15, 16 months since we've been at the Brook.
Right, and it wouldn't have even been at the Brook. It's been Zoom.
Were you Zoom only?
Yeah.
Wow, so my memory failed me. Good. I'm glad when I'm wrong once in a while.
Yeah, I think it was like June 4th, my first Thursday evening Zoom meeting.
I think the first time I actually met you face-to-face was here.
Yep, yoga.
When I was doing a little Sunday yoga. That is the first place, yeah. Katherine come through Christopher's
I think I actually
group.
Pushed you. I was like, you
nudged me to do it
did.
that weekend. You did. You nudged me to do the yoga, and I said, okay, I will. I really like doing that. My biggest problem, and this is a good problem to have, is that I have so many great things going on in my life that I had to pick and choose which ones I'm going to do. And I would have never believed that was going to be the case. When you first get sober, you don't know what you're going to do with your time. I'm not going to be able to do anything because I need that included. I guess I'll just sit and watch TV all day. I can't even do that because that's all I did was watch TV and drink beer. And now you end up with more time and energy than I don't know how I have the energy and the time to do the things.
I don't know how I had the time to drink.
Yeah, really.
Like, how
right?
the hell did I fit that in?
I went down and spent the night in the woods last night. Went and did a little backpacking trip. And once in a while, and I talked about this in our meeting earlier today, April celebrated 2 years of TSSR today, and we all went to Ross's for a meeting. And every once in a while, this dude, I call him the dude on my left shoulder. He's kind of like the devil angel kind of thing on one shoulder talking to you, and the dude on my left shoulder pointed out the liquor store on the way down there last night because I was alone. And it says it goes. I see
Even
that.
after 6
I
years.
see that. That it taps me when if I be riding down the road with somebody else, he can't get my attention. That's why we do things together and in pairs and go together, because that guy don't have a voice except for when I'm alone. He never talks to me while I'm standing there with somebody. He only talks to me when I'm by myself, and it truly did turn my stomach to think about doing that.
It grabs you when you don't expect
yuck.
it. I mean,
But the very act of drinking and thinking about doing that turned my stomach. I thought, if I did that, I wouldn't have went down there and done anything.
No.
Right? I'd have parked my butt in the recliner in the cabin, and there I'd have sat.
Yeah.
And a little while later, I felt like shit and went to sleep and woke up feeling like shit.
Yeah. That's one thing I really don't miss is the waking up feeling like total
there's a
shit.
thing that says, think the drink through. And that really does work, and I'm pretty good at thinking about that pretty quick. And the big book says that you'll I can't remember. It's an R word, like from a hot flame.
Oh, recoil.
Yeah, you'll recoil.
Yeah, you will recoil
from it.
so from a hot flame. Yep.
Just like, and that is what I feel today, because it just has absolutely no attraction to me.
Your stomach just sinks.
Yeah.
And you're just like, ugh.
And that feeling,
Yeah.
hungover, and even drunkenness. Well, my last year or two, maybe more than that, the drinking wasn't working anyway. I had to put pain pills on top of it in order to drink. And when I drank and didn't have any pain pills, because I couldn't stop drinking, it wasn't like if I didn't have any pain pills, I wasn't going to drink.
Right.
I just suffered through it. And those last few years it sucked from that standpoint.
Yeah.
I could not just drink. I would get to feeling terrible, but a few pain pills to make me feel right, okay, real quick.
Yeah. Somebody else actually told me that the way they recovered from a hangover was to take pain pills.
Yep, I used to do that. Yeah, it really is like a miracle. It's sort of like when I first found alcohol and first found every substance I ever have done.
Oh, yeah.
I don't remember saying, I don't like this. It was all like, man, who's been hiding this shit from me? How come if I do remember when I was on the pain pills and it was early on and they were working really good, having the thoughts of, okay, I got to figure some way to get a lifetime supply of these.
Yeah.
And I will be okay forever if I can just have a lifetime supply of these things. And I was going to back doctors and trying to get some golden ticket.
Lucky, because me and my body and pain pills do not mix.
Yeah.
They make my eyeballs itch. Every part of me itches.
Yeah.
I do not. I don't know if I'd consider it lucky or what, but like alcohol was always
fortunate.
my main thing. Alcohol was always my thing.
Yeah.
Never really.
There is some fortunate, the bad part about it is that I do not believe that I've given up the complete right to pain relief. And if it made me itch real bad, I don't know that I'd do it. And I know some people it makes them nauseated. But it's a blessing then that you didn't like them. Your body was saying, don't do this. My mother got the itches real bad, like hives almost.
Oh, but
she
still took them, didn't she?
Oh, yeah. She'd just go right through it anyway, just suffer through the itching.
I say, but how much suffering did I have with my alcohol and I still drank? So, toward the end.
And she really, truly had a lot of pain, too. So, you may be tipping the scales on, okay, I'll deal with the itching. She did truly have pain issues and a lot of going on, too. So, and I had there'd be times when I know that itchy feeling. There's times when it do that to me, too. But it certainly wasn't meant I was going to stop.
Right.
So, welcome to the show, Katherine.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. I always think of this about and Katherine, what's your sobriety date?
This time around is
current sobriety date.
My current sobriety
I like
date
to say.
is May 6th, 2020.
Right.
Yeah.
So I crossed over the 1 year mark. I always like to get people. There's something special about that first year.
There is.
And but you can speak to another thing that I found out too is that my first year was not as good as my first year. Now, I don't know if that's the way it was for me. And I try to warn people of that too, that digging out of the hole after you've already been there.
Oh, I would not recommend it.
Sweet.
I would not recommend going back out there at all.
Yep.
I mean, that's a part of my story. And, it just comes down to getting away from the work, getting away from meetings and people and connection, and ego.
Yep.
Huge part of ego, but I do not recommend it.
That's what, so what I tell people is, look, this first year has been great. Hang on to it, because if you have to do it again, it's not going to be so good.
It's hard coming back.
It's better than some other alternatives, but
right. Yeah.
The pink cloud will not be as pink.
No. My very first time around, the massive pink cloud and sharing it with everybody, and I think I was kind of like a evangelist a little bit, but Now, my second time it had some of that flavor, but I was going through it in a whole complete different energy field. I was escaping that prison sentence, and I was going through the work with Christopher, and I was surrounded by the spiritual underground, and it was pretty pink. Yeah, I think, I feel like the depths of the despair that you're coming from sort of, color, your experiences and stuff. But,
So where'd you grow up?
I grew up in, if you're from there, you say Louisville, Kentucky.
Okay.
But I learned when I started traveling and stuff, I'll never forget, in college, we all had to introduce ourselves. And I said, Katherine, Louisville, Kentucky. And the guy looked at me and I had to repeat. He goes, oh, Louisville!
Yeah.
So, I always joke, I was born on July 24th, 1981. I was 20 days late. So I always joke, I was so independent. My due date was July 4th. But, and I wanted to be a Leo. So I always feel like I have this juxtaposition of character within me, like Cancer Leo, because I'm right on the cusp, and I'm not real into zodiac or anything, but it always seemed to make sense.
There's something to it.
There is. I'm always, in my mind, I'm like, look at me, and they're like, don't look at me. It's like sort of like when I get into it, I'm good to go. But
I don't know why, those little things grab you. I'm at August 24th. The 24 numbers.
Yeah, well, 724. Or I always joke, I'm going 24/7.
Okay, yeah, that's another good one.
Yeah, but I was born here in Louisville.
Brothers and sisters?
Yes, I am second to five. So I've got 3 sisters and a brother, and grew up Catholic. I'm a Highlands brat. So if anybody knows the Highlands, I went to St. Francis of Assisi. So definitely grew up with religion, and I was grateful for the experience when I was there, and then I continue to look back and see how lucky I was, but also like the teachers that I had. There was one specifically that really drew me and some other people in environmental science, and we had this group called Friends of the Future, and because of that, I was able to do some phenomenal things even at a young age.
So growing up from that standpoint sounds like things were pretty good overall.
Things were good. I always said that my parents were like wrong pieces of the puzzle trying to fit. My dad's working alcoholic. Alcoholism runs rampant in both sides of my family.
I heard a guy, there's one of my, that's like a joke. A guy says, some people say alcohol runs in their family. He said, alcohol gallops in my family.
Yes. I definitely got it, honestly. But of course, kind of grew up with the mantra that alcohol was bad. Stay away from alcohol.
Did you?
Oh, yeah. Like I did not really start drinking until I was 23.
But you saw drinking in the home.
Oh, absolutely.
And so it turned you off from that.
Oh, it turned me
it
off completely.
Yeah.
My dad turned into a monster. He was, for the most part, an angry drunk. Sometimes he would be fun. I have great memories of us doing like really crazy things. Like when we'd have snow, we'd hang on to the back of his bumper, and he would drag us around the streets. Like hang on the back to his bumper.
Jekyll and Hyde of alcoholism, where he can be doing that one day and holy terror the next.
Yeah. I mean, to where, just you'd be scared of him.
Yeah. Now, alcohol was normalized in my family, and I didn't see drunkenness. I saw a lot of not a lot, but, because if it had been a lot, they'd have been drunk. But I saw a lot of beer drinking and wine here and there, in the family functions and all that. But I never was exposed to much what I would call drunkenness that really impacted me, that I went, something doesn't look right there.
Yeah, my dad would normally hide in the basement, and he always joked because he drank Makers, and he said I should have been drinking Make M's because he's got 4 girls and a boy. So, Makers was always his thing, and I know my mom was just trying to, she knew because it ran in our genetics, that alcohol could be a danger, and but I think the story that I got was that alcoholics were bad people, not sick people that have an issue that is truly completely out of your control. And I think that's maybe where my difficulty with celebrating sobriety comes in. It's because it's a willpower thing, which of course we know it's not at all. And I'm a recovering perfectionist, so even admitting that I have any kind of problem was difficult. But I grew up that alcohol was bad. I did not touch it. Friends would party in grade school and high school, and I just stayed away from it. Now, when I went from the small, tiny Catholic school that I loved, like I said, and had some amazing experiences. Got to travel, doing water studies and doing conferences, and all through grade school and high school. But I don't know if people are familiar with DuPont Manual versus some of the other Catholic schools, high schools. But I ended up getting accepted in Manual and going from this tiny little Catholic grade school, where I wore a uniform for 8 or 9 years, and then to this huge public school, and just felt totally out of place. So when people talk about not fitting in or whatever, I had 3 outfits to my name. I had no idea how to dress, just totally overwhelmed by the situation. And by my junior year, I ended up struggling with food issues, just starving myself, and eventually it would lead into bulimia. And then what's
the difference between bulimia and anorexia?
Anorexia, I kind of had both. I would starve myself.
Sometimes they says it together. They'll be combined.
Mm-hmm. Well, and then there's exercise bulimia. I got to a point, I started training for a marathon my junior year in high school, and working out, exercise, and sports was always my outlet and my thing. And I was really good at sports. I played basketball in both grade school and high school, and I didn't even pick up soccer until my freshman year in high school, but was playing varsity by my sophomore year and stuff. So excelling, was never an issue and stuff.
So the anorexia and bulimia, what?
That came in.
What anorexia?
Anorexia is starving yourself and not eating. And then bulimia, there's a couple different forms of it, I guess, but bulimia is eating and then throwing up what you eat. Purging. And then there's exercise bulimia, which means you exercise everything that you could have possibly eaten, burning every calorie that you can.
Calories, and make sure I run that far.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And I mean, the exercising I was doing on the little amount of food, that it was just insane. I always think to myself, I probably could have been in the Olympics or something, because I put my body through so much, but was still able to excel, at a pretty high level. I did. I had a good, I knew my parents loved me, and I felt supported, in grade school. And, there were a lot of kids, I'm second of 5, so, vying for attention, or, they never had, I guess, an issue with me. I was not an A student, I was an A+ student.
Yeah.
I could tell you the few B's that I got in high school, Still pissed off about them, no, I'm kidding. Yeah. But it was still a struggle.
You can kind of fly under the radar like that, if you're
absolutely.
Getting, I actually learned to use that to an advantage, is that nobody really bothered me and cared about what I was doing as long as my grades were okay.
Oh, and my mom was we never knew you needed any help.
They just kept the heat off of me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Shoot, that's a relatively easy price to pay, is get good grades, and mom and dad don't pay much attention to what else I'm doing.
Yeah.
Wasn't that they didn't pay attention to me. I was getting ready to say that, and that is not at all the case. Mm-hmm. But I think I got a lot more rope.
To run with in order to get yourself in trouble.
Yeah. Because I was a good boy. I got good grades.
Yeah. Well, and I feel like I stayed busy enough with, all kinds of stuff. It's like I really didn't have time to get in trouble.
Yeah.
But yeah, I kind of grew up with just, I could take care of myself, or, and I was always taking care of younger siblings, and, Catherine's okay.
Yeah.
It's just like, and, I'd never asked for help. So, and I've learned you don't do anything half-ass. That was sort of like, and, my mom was, high expectation. She had really high expectations of herself, and she had high expectations of us, so I had high expectations of myself. And I feel like I perfectionism to a fault. I very much dislike it, but very much can't help it. Like, just even like a...
And it's, there's a lot of places that serves you, but there's a lot of places that won't too. And, well, it's just, I find it's interesting to watch the different dynamics of people that come in and talk here, about, just awful childhoods to silver spoons in their mouths.
Right.
And this disease don't really care that awful much about your economic status.
Nope.
And, the mom expecting you to do well is a good thing. That helps you, and where those balance tip points are,
Yeah, and I'm learning that with my
tips over the edge of being setting expectations too high on them, so that they end up feeling like failures because they didn't meet up to them. It's a hardest thing in the world is raising kids.
Absolutely.
Hardest thing in the world.
Yeah, it's like, do as I say, not
You're
as
always
I do.
guessing. It's all guesswork. It's roll the dice, and I wonder what this will do to them, sort of.
I wonder when they're going to find
too
out.
Too mean, too nice, how you be just right in the middle.
So yeah, just having, having my mom have such high expectations of herself, and then still kind of criticizing herself. It's like, God, if this person, she, is so great in all these ways, and she's still not good enough, what does that make me? So and it's
setting expectations that can't be met.
Exactly. I think that's a lesson that we all work to learn or need to know, but just expectations of self and expectations of other people. And knowing whether they're a kind of person that could even meet that expectation, and then realizing you need to let it go, or it's on you if you continue to be disappointed. But no, I feel very lucky for, like I said, I traveled, California. We did like a pilot project. I got to go down to Ecuador, Santo Domingo, Ecuador, when computers and internet were just becoming new. Like, our project was, you can give a small town the internet, and you give them the world. So anyway, we worked with a youth group down there, and did an internet cafe. And I've been to the United Nations a few times working on environmental projects and sustainable development, which is like this word that everybody uses. But, actually facilitating action is another thing. So
it sounds like you graduated easily and probably with high up in your class. And
yeah, I was nominated. I won an award called the Maryknoll Youth World Mission Award or something like that. But anyway, graduated, got scholarships and
athletic or both.
Academic. I just decided I didn't want to do the. I knew you'd spend all day and all night doing sports.
Yeah.
I had a lot of sports, and honestly, I was too short to really play basketball. I loved being a point guard, but I knew that wasn't going to happen. So,
but there's a lot of people that are fair athletes that get through college on a scholarship anyway. So, you don't. Good is good.
I'm not discounting that at all. It just wasn't for me. Yeah.
So where'd you go to school?
So I ended up getting to Marquette in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And I loved it. I shadowed a bunch of different colleges and stuff, and ended up there. Wanted to get into communications, media arts. I have always loved movies. I love writing. I've always wanted to, how it talks about the big book, the writer, the director, the producer. I seriously wanted to do all that, and I was told it wasn't practical. So I sort of got into the news side of it, and as a freshman, I was already on like the news station at Marquette and stuff. Yeah, the news, and hated it. I'm like, oh my God, you're a talking head. You're just sitting there reading a prompter. You know, you had to, it was more about the story fitting into a certain amount of time.
Yep.
You know, I mean,
Yep.
it was horrible. I couldn't stand it. So,
All orchestrated.
so I got into the entertainment side and kind of did a show like Bill Maher's show. And anyway, I mean, it was neat. I really appreciated those. But at the time, my parents were going through a divorce. So, like, prom day, I didn't go to any dances in high school. I really wasn't a girly girl. And like I said, I had really a lot of trouble acclimating to that big place. And so I went to one dance. It was prom. And I overheard a phone conversation between my dad and another woman. You know, he had accidentally hit like redial on his cell phone, so it rang me back, and I picked, it up, and of course, it was him not knowing that I was listening, and him talking to this other woman and stuff.
You knew what's going on.
So yeah, that was, I mean, that was the beginning of my mistrust of men for a very long time, and I confronted him the next day on the porch, just saying, I know you weren't at work. He's a painting contractor, so anyway, I heard you. And just a look on his face, just that, like, loss of trust. And anyway, I spent the summer selling knives because I normally would paint on his crew summers when I got old enough, but I didn't speak to him. So after that day, and then I got this letter in the mail. It was like $12 per appointment. So I was like, okay. Anyway, I went in for the interview, and it was just amazing product. And I came home. My mom was like, so what are you going to do? Or, I was like, I got the job. I'm selling knives. It's like, what?
Like kitchen knives?
So, yeah, Cutco. It's the world's finest kitchen cutlery and accessories. It's fantastic. It is the, best fishing, hunting, gardening, kitchen.
It's interesting that I
cookware.
don't think I've heard of it.
It's all American made.
Probably have I don't know, 1,000 or 2,000 knives in the house.
Yeah. Well,
one in my pocket all the time.
Yep. And that's what I love about Cutco. It's got the best warranty, and it's just a fantastic product.
So is it direct marketing, like door to door, or what?
They do a variation of things, but like back when I kind of started, their main focus was kind of getting younger kids to sell to family and friends and then get referrals and stuff. But like I said, I don't do anything half-assed. So I ended up breaking the national fast start record in the first 10 days and all this stuff, But, at the same time, I'm dealing with all this inner turmoil with parents divorcing and not speaking to my dad and trying to get ready to go to college. And, we talk talking about higher power, it's like, and I'd already spent like a year trying to get through these eating issues. And, the longer those continued, the more I hated my higher power. But I'll never forget, when this, at the beginning of the summer, wondering if I should go to Marquette since I'm going to be the one paying for it, because I wasn't talking to my dad, and we were at church. And it was a random priest that was there, and he was doing the homily, and he said, how we don't listen to Jesus sometimes. We're told by the universe of Jesus what to do, but we don't listen or don't want to listen. And he says, if you were supposed to pack your bags and move to Milwaukee, and that's where Marquette was, would you do it? I was just like, oh my God.
You took it as a sign.
Yeah, I took that as literally the priest that I have no idea who he is telling me. Yeah, so, and in college, I didn't drink. There's a picture of me with a wine cooler and an apple. And so ended up transferring back to Bellarmine because just having my parents they took 6 years to divorce. But, not to blame. Everybody's doing the best they can, but just not having that support.
Yeah. And the thing is here, and we get talked about that a lot, that it's not a blame game, and that's not what we're doing here. But there are things that we go through, and the path we're on life has impact on us.
Yeah. So just that kind of lack of support, I ended up coming home, going to Bellarmine, and, once again, just working my way through school. And my first sort of real drinking was when I won some trips each year for Cutco, for selling so much. And I remember my first kind of time where I could not get up and go do what I planned on doing was in Puerto Rico. I drank so much that night I could not get up, or actually I didn't even wake up to go snorkeling the next day. I was like, huh.
Do you remember your first drunk?
Yeah, I'd say that was definitely my first drunk. It was, I guess...
So it was on a business trip.
It was
basically a
work
paid
hard, play
vacation
hard
kind of thing. And I know quite a few salespeople that you start thinking, they're making a lot of money if they're able to send people places.
Yeah. So anyway, but I would go have fun on a trip and then come back and that was it.
Yeah.
Really not drink any, and then do it again if there was another
Special
trip.
occasion drinker.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't even know hardly, just because of my dad's situation, we really didn't. And my uncle actually has been in AA for like 35 years or something like that. So
actually active, or you mean successfully?
Oh, successfully. Yeah. I mean, after his like 8th DUI,
yeah,
he was like, so, and it's, so yeah, I mean, even when you say special occasions, it was actually just more, we never kind of drank in the home a whole lot. I mean, my dad did, but sort of like nobody else. And my older sister kind of like left and never came back. Or she did, but I'm saying she was sort of out of town. So
I see that happen. And some kids escape as fast as they can.
Yep. And that was definitely, my sister. And I don't know. I guess I grew up with unhealthy boundaries with my parents. I was like their counselor for each of them. Like in high school, I'd go for walks with my dad and try and help him with my mom and vice versa. Yeah. And it was just like, so I don't know if there's
what not to do there.
Yeah.
But you probably, the other thing is you probably catch yourself doing it.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, even though you learn these things or these things, you still find yourself, oh my God, I'm really screwing up again.
Yep. So how did drinking progress from there?
So I graduated college. I really didn't even know. I ended up getting into another sales job. So basically, my story is just like sticking to what you know. And, sales is good money and it's practical. And it's like, I kind of grew up, and this is what I love about the TSSR. It's just talking about, the programming that you've got, and you got to be practical and, your dreams. Like I really did want to drop out of college and go to film school, and even after college, I looked into film school. But, again, just being practical and knowing that I had to support myself. And, anyway, I was working for AT&T Wireless in sales, and I met this guy, and anyway, he was a partier, and I figured, well, I didn't party in college, I'm going to get my party on. So sort of my first serious relationship, I guess, and moved in together, and then realized he was a real asshole. Just not a good guy. And anyway, the more volatile that relationship got, the more I drank. And I just, thought, well, if you can't beat them, join them, kind of thing.
Well,
and
it's a great feelings cover.
Oh, yeah.
I don't have to feel it. I just can numb my way through.
Yeah, and that was sort of like my second. So you had that phone conversation over her with my dad, and then sort of a similar thing happened with me and this guy that I was now living with. Yeah. So it's like, shit,
this dude you loved.
Exactly. Ugh. But
I love him.
But oh, and he was just, he was he was a great player and good at, checking all the boxes and, looking like the right guy.
Yep.
And definitely not. But,
I'd say that about me too.
Right.
I can relate to that.
But
I'll make you think I am. Underneath it here, someplace is something you ain't gonna see. But
right, yeah, and I think that's.
It's tough. It's a tough juggling trick, and I feel for that because I know it.
Yeah. Well, and I just found myself, again in this situation where it's just like you have these reasons that you don't want to leave. And then the reasons that you definitely should.
Pro-con lists. And
yeah, exactly. I mean, and this...
And it's tough. We get into routines, and it's tough to break any routine we get into. It doesn't really matter, because, the human will sit in uncomfortableness for a long time rather than risk change.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, is the pain over here worse than the pain that I have right now?
Yeah.
Or this kind of change. So, yeah, I stuck around a lot longer than I should have. It was verbally, physically abusive. I was definitely seeing. So this was only about 2.5 years after I'd started drinking, really. And, I saw the writing on the wall. I was like, I do not want to be like my dad, And this was the time when I really did make a concerted effort to try and stop drinking. And just would get home, and by 6 or 7, I was working at the Courier-Journal at the time, actually, in sales again, and just just really struggled trying to put it down. But at the same time, the eating issues were still there. I guess that's sort of what I also used as a control thing. When you're surrounded by all this chaos, you try and find one thing you can control.
Yeah.
Running and my food, I could control. That was in my purview. But no, I remember he poured a bottle of vodka over my head at one time. And in the end, we ended up in court because of the abuse and stuff. But I finally moved out. And I guess another reason I didn't, because I didn't want to end up back at one of my, parents' house, which was ultimately what was going to happen. So, but I guess it was, the drinking kind of continued. And I remember, I forget, October 2006, I was sitting in my car over in the Highlands, and, just again, this is not living. I am not living at all. I couldn't eat right, and I was drinking.
Yep.
And I couldn't stop.
A bottom.
Yeah, definitely.
Sitting there hitting the bottom.
I am basically dying right now.
Yep.
So luckily there was I had gone to a few meetings a few times. I had actually gone to JDAC a couple months before that, saying I want to get in. And I was able to stop drinking for the 15 days before I got an interview. And they were like, "You're not bad enough." They're like, "Oh, you're not. Are you sure?" They actually told me, or I don't know if you're an alcoholic because you were able to stop for 15 days. So I took that and ran with it. I'm not an alcoholic. See, it's just situational. So that was when I think I first started to make excuses for my behavior, just saying it was that person that did it. I'd be sitting on the couch drinking, and Wade would call the police on me. And I wouldn't even do anything. And at one point, they took me down to U of L, I guess, for the evaluation. This lady's interviewing me. And I was like, "Do I need to be here?" She's like, "No, you're, because it wasn't criminal or anything." So I just got up and left. And I'm downtown at 2 in the morning. And I waved down a tow truck driver to take me home. I'm like, "Oh, my God." But, just pure chaos. But there was somebody in AA that actually paid for my treatment. So I went to Texas, Abilene, Texas, for an eating first. And then they kept telling me to stay, go to a halfway house, stuff like that.
Is this after that October date? Is that what you're
saying?
You
that
hit
October,
that bottom and somebody in AA
bottom.
paid for you to go to treatment?
And November 9th, I was in treatment. So
out-of-state treatment.
Yes, out-of-state treatment down in Texas. So anyway, I learned a lot from it, I guess. It was, I don't know, treatment.
There's stepping stones, and some of us have to walk on the same stepping stone a whole lot of times before they get them, and some people don't.
Unfortunately, that was me.
And I think when you're young, too, there's a thing about thinking you can reel it in. Mm-hmm. The trouble I got into early drinking, I honestly thought that I was handling it.
Yeah.
And had no idea I wasn't. I really, you could have told me anything. I had a handle on it. I could stop.
Yeah.
I'm on probation for a year. I didn't drink.
Right.
The day I was off, I was partying and,
exactly.
and thought it was okay.
Yeah. No, I looking back on it, I told myself so many times that, I wasn't really an alcoholic. One of my first meetings, I was already calculating how old I'd be when I had 30 years. Talk about an alcoholic. I'm like, what, just craziness. But, even after going to treatment, I went there and I went to Texas for the eating and then California for the drinking. And I know I didn't appreciate it the way I should have. I don't know if 26 is young or not. But
it is. You're a kid.
I did. I realized early I got an issue. And, in my first AA meetings, I was like, what the fuck, these people? I was like, all you got to do is give it up, with food, because that was my main issue. And, it cost me so much in my life. But I'm like, so I don't know if I was quite pickled yet at that time. But, I still, even when I got out of treatment, I mean, I don't know if I've ever said this story out loud, but I was in California. I got out of treatment. I think my mistake was never doing the in-between process, never going to like a halfway house or something. I went, totally away from all the triggers, all the shit that was giving me anxiety, totally in a bubble. And then went right back to the life that was causing me so much pain.
That's still the thing. It's why we try to catch guys coming out of treatment, and get them plugged into AA, and tell them, look, if you don't, your success rate will not exist.
Right.
If you just jump back out, if you just jump out of treatment and go home, you aren't fixed.
Right. And to a family that still thinks it's a willpower thing.
Yeah.
Yep. It's like seriously.
Not understanding the disease.
Right. So, I'm so embarrassed to even say it. I got out of treatment. I hung out with some friends in California for a couple weeks. And then on the airplane, in the airport, on the way home, I drank again. Mm-hmm. And, of course, my body wasn't used to it. It had been off of it for a while. And the psychiatrist leaving, I don't know why he did this, but leaving the treatment center gave me these, pills to stay calm, which was ridiculous. I really wasn't a pill person anyway. So anyway, between the pills to stay calm and alcohol, I ended up passing out on the plane.
By giving you like a benzo or something?
I don't even know. Probably. Like I said, I never really was into pills, but
Dr. Brady says it's just alcohol in pill form.
Right,
the
yeah.
Benzos.
I love Burns. He's a good guy. But so I ended up they had to end up landing in Evansville for mechanical issues and stuff, but I was so out of it, I ended up at the hospital.
Oh, yeah.
And then had to lie to who was going to be picking me up at the airport.
Why you're not there?
Why I'm not there. Then ended up having to the airport company drove me from Evansville to Louisville.
Oh, really?
And then was sitting there at Louisville everything's hunky-dory. My mom picking me up and me just concocting
just a little late.
Right?
You know how flights are.
Thank you. See? Well, and at least I had the mechanical situation to kind of cover for me.
You had a plausible
deniable. Yeah, exactly.
Way to go about it, no doubt.
Wow.
You ain't a good alcoholic, you can't put that story together.
Oh, yeah. And looking back, I'm just thinking about the lying. I'm still working through my amends and stuff and sort of balancing. It's well, do you get honest with the person? And that's why we have to evaluate whether...
That's why you have somebody guide you through that stuff.
Whether it's going to cause more harm or, But yeah, I don't know.
But you can always make amends. I want to make sure that point gets hit. Just because you don't make direct amends because of the harm, you can still you can still balance the karmic scales.
Absolutely.
A lot of people will want to use that to get out, to escape the amend, right?
Yeah,
I'm off the hook on this one.
Yeah, I don't want to hurt the person any more than
No, we're just going to do something else.
Exactly. But no, I'll definitely have to get honest with, my fabrications and lies and, the one thing I will say that I got that really stuck with me out of the treatment in California was integrity. And realizing that was one of my core values is being open and honest and truthful, and
say what you're going to do and do what you say.
Exactly right. Even down to where if I'm going to be 5 minutes late somewhere, I'll text somebody and let them know. I know that sounds silly, but
no, I live that way.
Mm-hmm. But just that really resonated with me. And now, of course, did I lie my ass off, once I got back and continued, but that message still stuck with me. Yeah. But March 8th, I guess it would have been 2007. So, was my official finally getting I think I got out of rehab at the end of February, screwed up on the way home, and then multiple days thereafter, and then was just sitting on the floor, just what the fuck am I doing? This is insane. This is so insane. But finally got my shit together and stayed sober for a year and a little bit. That was when I actually in May it was the job I had before I went to treatment was really cool. They let me go to treatment, and when I came back, I had it for a month or two, and then they ended up firing me over the phone. And then we're like, "We'll mail you your stuff from your desk." I'm like, Jesus, but it allowed me to say
You couldn't
yes.
make it to work?
Do what?
Why'd you get fired?
They just, I mean,
It wasn't alcohol related.
it wasn't alcohol related. No, it was just they
just got rid of you.
They hired me to do sales, and they weren't ready to have a salesperson.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, by having the job say no, this is one of those like higher power things. I was able to say yes to this bike ride across the country, which was just an amazing experience. And I was actually talking to youth and, schools and things like that. Part of my story, I didn't go like in depth with it, but just was able to like, just talking about, drugs and alcohol in high school and, trying to, follow your heart, and try and listen to your own story within yourself. Anyway, I've never had the serenity that I had when I was riding my bike in Arizona and Mexico. Like, I want to go back there and ride again. It's just that when I think about serenity, and when we talk about serenity in the program and stuff, that is where I have felt it like more than anything in my life. Which I think is neat because, if somebody hasn't found that, I would recommend like really trying to find where you can, find that serenity. And I think a part of it was that, I don't know, just the expanse of nothingness in the desert and, riding the bike and just being able to have the clearest mind that I think I've ever had.
Yeah. So that was another period of sobriety.
Yeah. So
that's most time when my guests are in here talking, I like these phrases pop up, that are just directly parallel. A lot of people say the big book, is antiquated, and
I love the big book. They're not reading it right.
Like you said, you were sitting there pounding your fist on the bar, saying, "How did I get here again?" Yeah, and then and most of us do. We have these periods of sobriety. Bill says in there, there were periods of sobriety. And, we could pull off some time, and some people could pull off more than others. And there's guys that couldn't pull off any time. But I had plenty. When my tail feathers were on fire, I could have a period of sobriety. I could get a DUI and walk the line for a while,
Yeah.
And therefore means I don't have a problem with it.
Exactly. Yeah. And again, I think forgetting, when you forget the pain of the past, and you're not doing this work, you're not staying connected. And again, that's where sponsorship comes in, because then you're reminded of where you came from. It really is just a matter of time.
Yep.
I was a ticking time bomb several times.
If you are a true alcoholic, it's going to catch up with you. And it will progress to a point that those things almost seem like like you really didn't have it yet, sort of. You haven't crossed the invisible line kind of thing. And then one day you wake up and you've been drinking daily for 4 years or whatever it's been, and now you really are under the deal, and it's got you.
Yeah, like I was always told myself that, well, I've never been the type of person that drank every day for like a year or whatever. One, because my body wouldn't let me. Like 4 days was my max of being able to drink like day after day.
Yeah.
But I mean, the stupid stuff we tell ourselves, whether we're addict or, my dad working alcoholic. If you get up, go to a job, take care of your kids. I mean, my most recent sort of situation, I was a good mom, but I wasn't the best mom that I can be.
Yeah.
But I remember saying, like, I, had a year, and, March 8th, I guess, I don't know, it was 2006. But anyway, I just remember saying, like, you could pay me $5 million and I won't ever drink again. 2 months later, Derby. Guess who's drinking? Yeah. And it's funny, not funny at all. So, I was out for like 3 months, and things hardcore fast. I mean, like, to a point where I was climbing up the fire escape naked, trying to get into my locked apartment kind of shit. I mean, just stupid, insane things.
Yeah.
It's just like, how in the fuck?
Yeah.
So.
And then you struggle up against step 2 when it says restore me to sanity, and you go, I'm not crazy.
Yeah.
And you look back and go, that was kind of crazy.
That was really freaking crazy. That was absolutely insane. And I had a lot of that I would forget. And so I, got another sobriety date, August of 2008. and then had another year and a half, and then relapsed again. It's just, and I don't mean to laugh. It's actually like heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking.
But you were, at those times, if I'm hearing you right, all you were doing was putting down the alcohol. You weren't really doing any work behind them?
No, I was, again, resentment, and like I'd do the work in the beginning, and then
but you wouldn't consummate the 12 steps and then drink again.
I would do the 12 steps, but not in a way that I did them, or I'm doing them this last year. Not at all.
That's what, and that's the same thing I could tell you. I did go through the steps in 2011, but it's almost like, I have a little story, and it's crude to say, but I don't even count it anymore, compared to what I've went through this time around. So I really can't say, for during those 4 years prior to my current sobriety date, I would tell you I worked the steps. But I really
totally
didn't.
Agree. In comparison to this last year, absolutely not.
I think that's where it comes into half measures, and unless you let go absolutely, just kind of doing the steps, or mostly doing the steps, that kind of stuff doesn't really get it all the way there.
Kind of mostly is exactly what I was doing.
Okay, that's what I want to be clear about here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I almost have one definition of relapsing, that if you work the steps truly to the best of your abilities and practice these principles, and then you relapse, well, then I call that a relapse. Otherwise, it's just another one of these periods of sobriety,
Right. I get you.
See what I'm saying?
Oh, absolutely. There's sober and there's recovery.
Yeah.
There's a big distinction.
Well, people come in, and you see them every 3 weeks, and they've relapsed again. They relapsed again and relapsed. I'm like, you never relapsed. You never did stop.
You never stopped. Yeah. No, I would do the work. I mean, there was twice that I really did do the 12 steps. Now, and I take that back though, because my sponsor at the time, in these last, I have 4 serious sobriety dates. Again, not proud of it, but...
And I think I know where you're going on what you didn't do, and then that's the kind of mind trick we do with ourselves. Yeah, I was going to say,
I never had...
people will say that quite often, that they worked them all, and then you go, well, were you sponsoring people? Mm-hmm. No. Well, that's kind of one of them.
Exactly. No, that...
Yeah, but I think that's the cunning, baffling, powerful thing of alcoholism. It'll have you convinced that you work this work. Mm-hmm. And then you go, well,
I'm going to convince you that you don't need this. Oh, you don't really relate to these AA people, or you don't want to make AA your life, or...
I'm not really wired for sponsorship.
Well, I'm
I hear that one around.
Yeah, I make it an excuse now, but my sponsor never told me, go get a sponsor. Yeah, right. But this time around, I'm like, okay, is it time to sponsor yet? It's like, okay, what's your part in that? It's like, you never really brought it up, and I never really, really stuck around long enough,
And I didn't really think it was a requirement back then. I thought,
right?
You all talk as shit about these things being suggestions. Mm-hmm. I never sponsored anybody.
Yeah. No, there's a reason these steps are the steps, and they're all there.
That's why I say that thing, that guarantee that if you work the steps and practice these principles in your life, you'll never drink again if you don't want to.
Yeah.
And but that's a bit, that's a mouthful.
It is. It's a lot.
And people will say, "I'll work the steps and drink again," and then when you get into their story,
it's like that.
They stopped going to meetings and they stopped doing everything and they put everything down, and that's not working the steps.
Right.
Putting down that's that's one of the toughest pills to swallow in this whole thing, is that I don't get to stop participating in my recovery.
Right.
I don't get to stop. This is going to be a lifelong thing for me if I want to stay sober.
Well, and that kind of goes in line with one of my, I guess, greatest character defects or faults, or that is my ego and my pride. Just me saying I'm an alcoholic, in my mind, that puts a chink in my armor, that doesn't make me superwoman anymore, or some convoluted bullshit I tell myself. And when we talked about the pink cloud earlier, my first time getting sober, I was proud. I wore it like a badge, and I don't know what's happened to where, over the course of the next couple of times I got sober, where I was embarrassed by it, where I wouldn't even celebrate Like, my third time, I didn't even celebrate my 1 year.
Yeah.
I was...
like sitting here now, how is that in alignment with somebody who wants to stay sober, right?
It's not at all. I just put it down, so...
But at the time, you just don't see that, And another thing is, I think that's why this a strong support group around you that, like, no, you're celebrating. That's, no two ways about it. You're,
this is a good thing.
Keep me nudging
this.
around,
yeah.
and I need that team around me. I'm glad, somehow or another God allowed me to build this team around me, that we keep each other accountable, on a daily basis.
Right.
But I finally surrendered to that point that's what I'm gonna need to do to stay sober. I'm gonna have to be plugged all the way in.
Right. Then there's nothing that gets in front of it. Yeah. I do not unless there is, I've only missed 2 Thursday night TSSR meetings in the last year. And I can't, one of them actually was 3 weeks ago when my dad was coming from the hospital, and I just completely forgot it was Thursday.
Yeah.
But I don't, and they talk about over and over in the big book is that acceptance, and I'm not good or bad. It's here nor there. Just, yep. I'm an alcoholic. I have an allergy to alcohol, just like a person has an allergy to a nut. If they eat a nut, they could potentially die. If I drink, I could potentially die. Yep. And I was busy dying, in my times of drinking.
Slow dying.
Mm-hmm.
For most of us, some people drink themselves dead pretty fast.
Yeah.
I look back at my people I ran with and how many of them now are dead as a direct result of alcohol. Mm-hmm. And everybody called it anything but that, but now I know, that these car wrecks and fatal accidents and suicides and all those were alcoholism. Mm-hmm. So some people go quick.
Yeah.
But it will eventually get you. We poo-poo those cliches a little bit, and I tend to, I don't too much anymore, but I still cringe a little bit because it just seems. So we got 1 of 3 places: jails, institutions, or death.
It's so true.
But not for me.
Right. Yeah. Well, and I told myself that time and again. Yeah, it's like I don't need this, and I don't need it. I don't. Again, it's just the stories we tell ourselves of it, the ego getting in there. And
I believe the Superman thing of youth, when you're young, mm-hmm. you still feel like you can handle things, mm-hmm. that it won't happen to me.
Yeah. Well, in my last in 2011, I had I got pregnant with Ainsley, surprise. And
your first.
Yes, and that kind of started my it started my I guess it wasn't even my most recent. This is I can't say it's embarrassing because that's what we do is drink and drug. An addict does that, so drinking was kind of the norm. Staying sober is unfortunately the exception. Yep. If you're being blunt and honest about it. So I really was doing the work during that time. And I don't even, and again, just got away from meetings, got away from the work. I got a resentment against one of the ladies in my home group and then just stopped going. Yeah. And then was just like, I really don't need this. And then, the next thing I know, 14 days after I had Elijah, so 2011 to 2013, I was sober, and then kind of slowly started drinking again. And people, it's funny, a sobriety date, but you don't know the day you start drinking again. It just happens. It's like, I don't know, it was the middle of the summer, margarita with dinner with friends, and then a few months later I had another one. A few months, it would take about 2 years for shit to hit the fan. But I was 14 days after I gave birth to my son, I got a DUI. And, that it was just, and then got sober for 2.5 years and then drank again. Again, it's the forgetting the pain of the past. Of course, when I think about it now, it gets me a little upset. It's like, what fucking person has a 14-day-old at home? Yeah. It was, a few days before Easter. And even after getting out of jail, I still drank again the next day.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, it sucks. And if anybody thinks this is a willpower thing,
Yep.
then they're fucking idiots. Excuse me.
You're exactly right.
But this is not a place people want to be.
What this will do.
Yeah. But it takes doing the work, and it takes saying, I am this, and that's okay.
Step one, admitting it and really having it in there deep, and that's something, obviously you weren't able to actually swallow that completely. The thing is, by God, now you ought to be able to.
Right? You think that would have been after the last time, but again, it goes back to doing this work, and the most recent, I've got a year, but we had COVID, and I didn't know my husband was up to something last March, not this past, but last. My dad not doing well. It was like the perfect storm.
Yep.
And
it's an interesting thing the disease seems to do too, and I don't really know how that works. But as you walk along, watch. You'll see people that are in their early recovery will get some big goddamn challenges. Mm-hmm. It's like, how's all that raining on them, right now?
Yeah.
And I almost think it's some kind of thing disease-wise, man. I mean, it's. I don't really understand the universe, but with some time under my belt, there's definitely been some patterns I've seen of these crises on people, making it really tough for them to stay sober.
Well, my son got a neurological called infantile spasms out of the blue when he was 19 months. And if I had not been sober during that time, I don't know how any of us would have gotten through it.
Yeah.
But like you're saying, I'm sober again, and within a year and a half, it was the worst time of my life.
Yeah.
By far. A situation like, instead of having like seizures, his brain was in chaos all the time. But we were kind of lucky because most kids get it between 4 and 6 months, and he got it at like 20 months. So he could already sit and walk, and he had stopped talking. I didn't know why, but it was just the medications he had to do. I was having to give my son like a shot, like an actual shot. They didn't even really train me, but what I'm getting at is just there's no way I could have been there for him and done what I did, and do that without being sober.
Yeah.
And it's just, I don't know if you would say unfortunate, non-unfortunate. I had some support from some friends and stuff, but I wasn't going to meetings at that time. So it's just, I don't know what you would call it, just like stale, like recovery or something.
Yeah. One word we say is dry.
Yeah.
But we're just not drinking.
Right.
We're not treating this thing, and my tagline: you must participate in your recovery.
Yeah.
You must.
But anyway, so I would, in last year, COVID, I'm teaching my children every day. It was just chaos. Didn't know what my husband was up to, couldn't see the bank account anymore, freaked out about finances, trying to have patience with my kids, and drinking a lot at night, and sometimes during the day, and a lot of weekends. Even though, like the year before, I had gotten pancreatitis. The shit that I put my body through. So I was trying to mitigate not getting horribly ill again, but still drinking, but I was only drinking hard cider, Dan, only hard cider.
Yeah.
No hard alcohol anymore.
Beer to wine, whiskey to brandy, all that kind of stuff that we do.
It's, the big book.
I know people sitting here have been in the hospital for chronic pancreatitis.
Mm-hmm. I was headed there.
Multiple times and still drink.
I was headed there.
I was staring at a 6 to 20 year prison sentence and still drank.
Yeah, it is. It is the greatest form of insanity I've ever seen or experienced myself.
Yep. And you're going to tell me I'm choosing to do that.
Right.
So the willpower thing, the choice, if you just make better choices and that kind of stuff. And, human beings don't do that, don't choose to do that. Mm-hmm. Like I said, I don't think people choose to commit suicide.
I don't think so either.
It's a power beyond there. It's the same. This alcoholism is a power greater than me. Ultimately, not the same one we get with when we get sober, but it is. It's like a computer virus. It's hijacked an operating system, and that person truly is not in control of their deal anymore.
No,
It kind of looks like it. They like to think they are because they're making it to work and they're doing the things they need to do for the most part. And no, but that's what this is, and there's just no way. There's really hard to, and that's one of the reasons why I like to tell these stories on here, to continue to beat this drum about what this does to people.
yeah. On the outside, you can be checking the boxes and you can look fine, and
I was definitely one.
Rated despair within.
Yep, 2.3 kids, a dog and a cat.
Yep, you got
married
it.
for a whole bunch of years, held the same job for a
Yep.
whole bunch of years, had a nice house, 2 cars in the garage. All the boxes were checked. And I'm
Absolutely.
sneaking out at night, breaking in houses, stealing pain pills.
Yeah. And I mean, I will say a part of just my
And
story.
I could afford them.
Well, and yeah, that's a whole nother. Unfortunately, I was with, I am with somebody that, I met my husband in AA. So, and, he still fights the fight. And, that's a whole nother aspect of it. It's very, very tough to maintain,
Yeah, it's one of the hardest things going is to maintain your recovery when the
Somebody else
family's
is in
not
it.
in
It is.
support.
Very hard. And that's what I think made what happened last year so difficult because, he's doing his thing, even, bad, if not worse than me. And then I wake up May 2nd and my family's gone. And the gecko and the fish. And I didn't know where they were for 24 hours. I finally get a hold of them.
You woke up after drinking or sober.
No, I've been drinking. Yeah.
And that's why they were gone.
Yeah. I mean,
that's the hook it was hung on anyway.
right. The thing, yes. I mean, yeah, I had been, yeah.
No
right.
one thing ever does it, but
Right.
that was I would imagine, and if I remember right, that's the hook that was hung on.
Exactly. Yeah. Because even though I was doing everything I was supposed to be doing, my drinking was still out of control,
One of the other things that I've been in contact with is ladies who talk about the mommy wine clubs, that we deserve a drink.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, my God.
After all I'm
yes.
having to do, and
After
if
a
I
day,
can't have
yeah.
a glass of wine in the evening, then
Oh, absolutely. Did
all the way
I?
back to the Rolling Stones song and Mommy's Little Helpers.
I deserve it. Yeah, I did all this shit, and I've been, I'm teaching a kindergartner and a 4th grader, and taking care of my dad, and and again, all the uncertainty, but yeah, there's always good reasons to drink, or to escape, or to numb, or do whatever. I mean, it just I didn't need a reason. Obviously, I mean, excited I drink, sad I drink. It's Tuesday I drink.
Sunny, cloudy days,
Exactly.
days that end in Y.
Yeah, it's a good day to just sit inside and chill and watch a movie, and I remember back in the day I'd drink boxed wine and eat pretzels, but anyway, the most recent kind of come to was and then I didn't know for 24 hours. Then he called and just said, we're at my dad's, and then he called back an hour later and said, by the way, you're going to get divorce papers tomorrow. And that just started a whole shit of stuff. But thankfully, I had a friend that I had met when we both got into AA 12 years before, who suggested the Brook. And I ended up getting in Christopher IOP, and it was just...
So you just went outpatient, or did you go inpatient?
Because it would look good on paper, I did like the inpatient for like 2 or 3 days. But I didn't need to take anything to for withdrawal or anything.
Yeah, me either. But I do believe, and the book says so too, even though it says if they're jittery, they may need hospitalization, but there's definitely something to say about having that break, because it's mighty hard for some of us to get a tomorrow without being someplace safe and protected, and in there you can get a few days of not drinking in a row, and then they let you out and you get a little head start, because I did eventually, but before that, I wouldn't. Tomorrow just wouldn't come for me. You know, where I'm not going to drink tomorrow.
Yeah.
I just couldn't do it. I just couldn't. There's no way. The parasite drove me into the liquor store sometime before I got home from work that day.
Mm-hmm. Well, there was, you know, I mean, it's good that I think it happened because my mom and my sister went in and like scoured the house to see if there was any alcohol hidden anywhere. And I mean, they found some I didn't even know that it had been there. So who knows, you know, especially with what I went through, you know, last summer. But
so you went to what 5 days probably inpatient and then signed up for the IOP.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it was brutal. I mean, I still, it's hard for me to talk about because it's just like that was Mother's Day last year. So yeah, it sucked. And again, I have to like check myself because I want to like blame or be like, well, they, or, you know, the hypocrisy, or, but it's just, and I think you said it earlier today, until you say something out loud, you know, it still has so much power and so much pain, you know, behind it.
Yep.
And no, I was not my best self. No, I was dying once again. And there is also like, how the fuck did I get here again? But, you know, thankfully, I finally heard a message that made more sense to me in a way it never had before. I don't know, and there was a clarity to it. And then I heard about this podcast, Spiritual Underground. So, like, when I had all these demons talking to me in my head last summer, I would put another voice in my head, you know, and listen to other people's stories. And I finally let my ego go. And I wrote, the first thing I wrote in that IOP on the first day was, I know nothing. It didn't matter that I had 13 on and off years of recovery. I mean, it was obviously bullshit for the most part because I'm back here, you know, which is okay. You know, I had a sponsor last year that said, it's okay. It's okay just for today. And God, did I need that mantra, especially when I'm in a house that was empty. You know, so you go from like COVID to like extreme togetherness to nothing, you know, for that. And that was my job. That was who I was a mom. So I'm grateful for it. I'm still working through the fact that like I was in that position again. But if it hadn't happened, I wouldn't have found this. I wouldn't have found a depth of recovery that I have today. I found my fucking higher power. I didn't realize that I really didn't have a higher power because nobody, you know, said to fully let go of all the bullshit that you had been told, you know. I don't know if there was a Noah or not. I don't know if there was a rib and Adam and Eve or any of that shit, you know. It's still, but when I got to bring my logical scientific approach to my higher power, the connectedness of this universe, you know, the fact that everything is a wave, everything is frequency. You know, when I always joke when Christopher said quantum physics that first day, I was like, yes! You know, somebody that spoke the spiritual side of things, but also the scientific side and brought it together. And things just clicked finally. And I guess it was the second most painful time of my life, the first being when my son was sick. But it finally also let me have a break. It sounds so bad, but because my children weren't there, I fucking could think for once. I like had hours to be like, okay, where am I in my life right now? Who am I? You know, how did I get here?
It's a very common theme that what appears to be the worst thing somebody could believe could happen to them turns out being the thing that works out the best for them.
Yeah.
Not a prison sentence.
All the most horrible things that I was afraid of happening, you know, losing my children, like losing basically any way of like paying bills, potentially losing my house, like losing everything. It finally just, there was nothing left but to learn what I need to do to start living.
Right. And Joseph Campbell says, we all get wake-up calls. And some of them come as a tickle feather. And if you don't listen to the tickle feathers, it progresses until it's a sledgehammer. And I can look back at the opportunities I had when the telephone was ringing. God was calling and calling, and I wouldn't answer a telephone essentially. And it ramps up on us until it finally gets us. And you can't beat yourself up for not answering the phone back then because you weren't capable of doing it.
Right.
You really do have to settle in on this. This is just my journey. This is just mine. And my biggest hook I hang on, that I used to hang that on, is that I suppose I'm doing this so that I can help somebody else in the same position. That's my job today.
Yeah.
My job is to use my story to help other people. And hopefully they don't have to do what I did. Or at the very least, they will relate to what I'm telling them because they've been through the same thing again.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I just, I remember hearing it over the years, you don't have to do this relapse thing. It's not a requirement,
Relapse is not a requirement. It's not. But I don't know too many people that haven't done it.
Yeah.
I talk to a lot of alcoholics in the podcast and outside the podcast. There's very few people that are one-chip wonders.
Right.
They get that silver chip, stay sober. And for even those guys, time still ain't over for them. They might think they're a one-chip wonder.
Right.
But,
I mean,
and that's the other thing. We can't. That's the thing about participating in recovery and keeping it in the front, because I'm not going to sit here and say I'll never drink again.
Yeah, me neither. Because
I said that before.
I did too. I remember I said $5 million. A month and a half later. That was the year Big Ben won the Derby. I'll never forget it. But yeah,
I thought Dad was going to walk in here.
Oh.
I didn't. I tried to talk to him a couple times today. Every time I tried to touch base with him, he was taking a nap. And I busted out here yesterday afternoon needing some solace and packed up my 38-pound backpack and my camping gear. And he said, "Where are you going?" And I said, "I ain't sure yet, but I'm going someplace by myself tonight." He said, "It's going to rain like crazy." I said, "Well, I guess I'll get to test my gear." And I haven't talked to him since I got home this morning. I bet $100 he was going to walk in here. He probably saw a car out front and knows something's up. Because most time I tell him.
Probably saw like the top of my head sitting in there.
I don't know if he could see in here. He didn't ever look in the window.
Oh, gotcha.
No big deal. He gets all antsy when he walks in here, like he's interrupted church or something. He's like, "Oh, I'm sorry." But the truth is, you don't ever have to do it again, right?
No.
And now it begins to feel pretty crazy that you're armed with this level of facts, right?
Oh, absolutely.
The book says that too, armed with the facts about myself.
Well, and getting back to the higher power thing, it's just like, oh my gosh. I mean, this program is about like handing everything over or giving everything up.
Getting
and it's
you
just
in
like
touch with a power greater than yourself that you can rely upon.
And having this assignment that finally said, write down who or what your higher power is. I mean, mine, there are no words to describe.
God inventory.
Yeah. I mean, I never was told you could throw this shit out the window.
Yep. There's something missing out of the original 12 steps. I mean, it's vaguely represented.
Vaguely.
Choose your own conception and stuff, but not like hammered and drilled down like some of us need it explained to us.
Right.
And that's the whole reason for the TSSR book is because there is all this tribal knowledge. Because there's guys floating around since 1935 that had that idea. And you didn't bump into him or her. Then you missed it.
I must have missed them at the,
But that is just like, it's out, those that are out there. Because I'm certain, I'm not going to sit here and say that.
Well, I've loved listening to Burns.
Christopher will tell you, he didn't invent any of this.
Right.
It's all stuff that was taught to him. And he just documented it.
Yeah.
So that tribal knowledge, I'm going to have to assume was out there, and it was vaguely represented, but nobody drilled it in the way that Christopher drilled it into me about truly being able to invent. And I go to Walmart and I buy a brand new tub of modeling clay, and I get to come home and form up my whole new higher power from the ground
It's brilliant.
up.
It's brilliant. You burn the other one, and I mean, I still have my current, but
And people, it's a hard thing to get into people's heads too, because you weren't taught you could do that.
yeah,
You were taught more of that training and programming that this one is the one. And if you don't go along with this one, then you go to hell.
you're going to hell, man.
Yeah.
Mortal sin, and you go to
And we've been taught that since we were little kids. And then we get to be whatever age you are, or I got to be, in my 40s, and somebody's trying to tell me there's something different. It'd be like telling me that the grass ain't green.
Yeah.
The grass has been green all my life. What are you saying?
Well, we also have the connotations attached to things. Like I've had to, and I've said this many times before, but like just the word God gets people so worked up.
It does.
I
still flinch at Jesus.
Yeah.
I still can't help it.
Yes. Well, and you know what?
I can laugh at myself now. I know it's that dude on my left shoulder again, poking me in the ribs when that happens.
Just giving me an excuse.
And you know what? I've had a couple of breakthroughs, though, man, and I've caught myself before talking to somebody whose Jesus is their higher power, and they're talking to me, and they go, "You know what I mean, right? Jesus is Lord," and I just go along with it,
Yeah.
I just mentally said, they have their conception, I have mine, and I just agreed with them. No sense in arguing. There was a time when I had to say, well, that's not exactly the way that I think about it, and today I'll just go along with you. We're just talking, it's another analogy is we have every language has a word for water, right?
Right. Well, now it's the container fallacy. The only reason it has meaning is we give it meaning.
Yep. And if somebody offers you agua, you're not going to say, no, thank you, I drink water.
Right. Exactly.
And that's the same thing with these terms everybody uses. And Bill was on that too. And he said, don't have prejudice against the words, the spiritual terms are used here.
Right.
But that was just a little line, and it's written in that old language. Nobody really hammered that into me like what frankly, Christopher did.
Right. Yeah, and I still sort of cringe with like God the Father. It's like I do not like that was a huge. I'm like, oh, especially with my male like.
Yeah. And that really was a growth thing for me to be able to do that with a few people have basically evangelized me on the Jesus thing, and I just told them I'm already there.
Yeah.
Hey, yeah, with you, brother.
Well, I think Christopher said in a podcast I was listening to last year that Jesus was a master teacher. And I love that concept too. It's just like, and we all are, on this journey and at different places and levels and, our either spirituality or what we understand.
Yeah, and since coming to that, since awakening in my current sobriety date, I can now actually draw from multiple spiritual teachings and not have any prejudice. I like that, and I like this, and I like that, and I really like the North American Indian models.
I think that's why I felt so much peace in Arizona, New Mexico, was because the density of the population of people that were so connected, to in my true higher power.
Yeah, we get to take a bucket and pour all the good things that we like out of every ancient spiritual teaching.
The universe is too damn big to have this tiny little, this one conception or being.
But there is something to it, and that's something that has set with me. I've always known, that's another thing the Big Book says, I never was an atheist. I tried to play that role a little bit just for attention when I was a certain age.
Yeah.
I was a devil worshiper, and listened to Ozzy Osbourne and all that kind of stuff. But always have known something. And then, think somebody put it into words of and showed the hieroglyphics on, out there, out in the West. And the ones that are in Pakistan are similar.
All over the world.
Yeah, I'm not trying to pick just two opposite spheres things.
Exactly.
And they didn't have cell phones. They didn't have no way to teach one another that this idea was the same. But the same stuff is represented in their cultures, and there's got to be something to that.
And it's all over the world. If you look,
that can't be an accident.
Yeah, Egypt, Mayan culture, and then areas in Asia, totally.
Yep.
But, you know.
And that gets to be tough. The two toughest people to sponsor. Hardcore atheists that don't believe in anything. Because changing people's minds is tough.
Yeah.
It's a whole lot easier to take somebody who's open to it and mold them in a direction, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Especially if they get to pick the direction. And born-again Christians. They are. They're the hardest people. Those two groups are the hardest people to sponsor.
They got to save you, Dan.
Well, they're so unwilling to let go of their old ideas. And Bill says, you must let go of your old ideas. Now, I'm not saying your old idea is no good. You just got to let go of it. You know,
Yeah.
and
you got to be teachable.
And there's
for
a lot of
bit.
people that circle back to the religion of their childhood. You know, once they get with this,
Right.
you know, they will circle back and be plenty happy in the religion they were brought up with. But they got to let go of it for a while before they can circle around and come back there.
Yeah, I think that's what was so important for me to write down I know nothing on that first day, is I realized that everything that I've been doing before, you know, even though in my mind it was 12 steps here and this, and it was just like, well, obviously that didn't fucking work.
Yeah.
So, all right, I absolutely know nothing, and
Yep, you do. That's letting go of everything you think you know about everything. And because you just hit the nail on the head. Fact of the matter, if your old ideas were so good,
then why did
you wouldn't be here today.
Right.
And that's my favorite line to drop across the table to somebody that I'm working with that will kind of beat their fist about their religion and they got a higher power. And like you get not everybody, quite a few guys come in and they will tell me, oh, yes, I am connected to my higher power. You know, and they will, you know, by all, and I'm not saying they're not. What I'm saying is, that connection ain't enough to keep you from drinking.
Right, that connection hasn't been.
That's all that matters today.
Yeah,
you know?
you need to.
That's the only thing. It could be good for
Turn it
everything else.
Right.
But it's not working for this, so you need to look and start being open to pick up another tool or two. And we'll find something that, you know, that works.
Right. And speaking of tools, I guess I'm just trying to think of, like, if you compare the last year to the last 13 before it, it was keeping the tools in my hands, you know.
And that was a little forced on you, you know. It's kind of like that thing about getting hit with a sledgehammer. A lot of things were going on around you, made you grip them tools this time around.
Yeah.
You know
I couldn't let them
that's
go.
what, you know, and I say a lot of people who got, you know, getting sober during COVID, in my opinion, you should have a recovery that is forged in fire. I mean, a guy or gal gets sober during that time. Hardest damn time to get sober. I don't care. You had other stuff outside of that going on.
Yeah,
You know?
COVID was one of my least concerns.
But just COVID itself
Yeah.
should, to me, forge a deeper recovery because it had to be worked for harder. You know.
Yeah, because that in-person connection was really not there. Although I will say, I felt like there was no excuse not to go to a meeting.
Yeah, it does.
You know,
Yep.
because every 30 minutes you could hop on.
24/7.
Yeah.
You can go
In
to
your
a meeting.
pajamas.
May not
Hell,
be
you
in
could
this
be
country,
naked from the waist down.
But you can find an English-speaking country 24/7.
Yes, absolutely.
Yep,
And
and you don't have to take a shower, and you don't. Yep, and it did, but that, you know, it also goes down to it takes more than just meetings to get sober, though, too.
Right.
You know, and
I had a Post-it
What is
of-
the extra? You know, the other elements of recovery were harder to work for. You can go to a meeting easy. And
Right,
I actually
yeah.
I'll admit, I'm a
But-
little complacent today. I'm not all fired up to go back to regular meetings. This is, you know, I'm pretty solid today. I'm not feeling that I need some extra boost in that direction. And those Zoom meetings are just freaking easy.
They are. I mean, and it would have been.
I'm lazy.
Yeah.
In that regard, a lot of people will.
Well,
say
I
I'm
mean,
not lazy, but I'm lazy in that regard.
yeah. I mean, every Tuesday night, Thursday night, I don't have to worry about childcare.
Yep.
I mean, it
They
really
can be
is.
running around behind
know,
you.
So, I mean, I am so grateful. And I do think it has, you know, enabled me to have a better recovery.
Yeah,
you know.
that's what I mean, and that's what I'm saying to you. Your recovery ought to be. It was forged in fire this past year.
It has, if I can, yeah. And there's still a little bit
And,
more
you know,
to go, but yeah.
So
there's
think
just-
about the level of insanity it would take to do it again now. to go back?
Uh,
And when that's what happens when people. That's why some of my friends are missing.
You know what you said?
Because they can't.
I won't say
They
I'll
only
never.
find one way out.
Right. And I'll never say I won't drink again, but I sure as hell know that I cannot put down these tools. And I know there's so much out there,
And you won't. You're not going to be walking into it stumbling blind either. To some extent, these other ones in the past.
Mm-hmm. They helped me.
You weren't
yeah.
necessarily properly armed with the facts about this stuff at that point. And now you are.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I mean about, I won't ever say I'm not going to drink again either. I get that completely.
Mm-hmm.
But if I do it now, I'm willingly walking into it.
Mm-hmm. Well, and
It won't be an accident.
I don't know how, again, I guess you get it when you get it, but just the importance of working every single step. Yep. Every single one.
And then continuing. When it says, that's why when I make that guarantee that man made to me, and I think about the accuracy of his words that night, and this was in 2000. This was March the 26th, 2011. My very first AA meeting where I had a third tradition in my pocket, where I had a true desire to stop. Mm-hmm. I went to some AA meetings before that I wasn't ready to stop. But the first time I showed up with a third tradition, a desire to stop in my pocket, that guy said to me, and the people listening to this podcast have heard it, and you've heard it,
I definitely
that I can guarantee. He said, and he puts that if statement on the front of it, that qualifier. Mm-hmm. He says, if you have this thing called alcoholism, this thing that I got, if you work these 12 steps and practice these principles in your daily life, I can guarantee you'll never drink again.
Yeah.
And he said, but I can guarantee you something else. If you have this thing called alcoholism, this thing that I got, and you don't work these 12 steps and you don't practice these principles in your daily life, your life's going to get a whole lot fucking worse.
Yep.
And I wasn't prepared to hear fucking out of that dude that night. I really wasn't, because he's a soft-spoken, big, gentle bear kind of dude, and I just wasn't when he hit me with that. But still, my sobriety, my current sobriety is 4 years after that.
Yeah.
I'm bigger than the rules.
Oh,
maybe you people have to do that.
Right. I am unique.
It's another thing, man. And you do this thing.
It's so funny for people that I don't know, want to be so unique, but yet want to be like everybody else and be able to drink like everybody else.
Yeah.
I mean, how screwed up is that?
No doubt. Yep.
I want to be like you, but I'm nothing like you.
Yep. You hang around here and work with enough people, and you become like an amateur psychiatrist in a sense, because these people come in here with this, and I understand what Christopher's saying, that really, when you boil it down, we're all cookie cutter alcoholic, garden variety, some people say, and I didn't really hear that so well when he first told me, because you just don't hear stuff.
You don't
at times,
it's
not the way it really is.
Mm-hmm.
And then, but now, I have some guy call me up, and out of the blue, and wants some help. He knows somebody knows me, and wondered if maybe he could talk to me a little bit about AA or whatever. And they start dropping those same things. You hear the terminal uniqueness. Mm-hmm. You hear the like. Here's another one I hear lately. This is really hard for me.
Right.
The rest of us had it easy.
Oh, it was nothing.
I can understand. It's probably going to be more difficult for you than it is for other people.
Right. You don't understand.
Yeah,
See,
that's another,
I've got.
Here's what you need to know about me. There's some other things that come out on a regular basis.
Oh, that's so funny.
Yeah.
I know. Just that.
No, you're just like the rest of us. And that's the comforting thing now too, is that yes, I know I'm just like the rest of these guys, and I can quit being unique in that regard. And there is a thing where we are all actually unique. We all have individual souls, and we're the only ones that are like me. I am the only me.
I am the only me. Yeah,
for sure. But when it comes to the way this disease acts on you, it's cookie cutter.
Yeah, yeah, and it doesn't spare anybody. I mean, that's got it. And it's weird you saying I'm the only me. Is that when I was a kid, I didn't realize what I was doing. And I think it was maybe even a form of meditation, but I would say that over and over and over again. And really get wow, I am the only me.
When you think about like that, like, that's a form of meditation, There's
Right,
some I am meditations and stuff.
Exactly.
And you're
Yeah, I
guided
didn't
to do
realize
that
it,
with
but
nobody teaching you necessarily. You might have picked it up someplace on TV or some
I don't
Sesame
think so.
Street or something, where...
well, I would think about like, God, I don't know what they're thinking, and they don't know what I'm thinking. And then when somebody would like get in the car and leave, I'm like, they're leaving and they're going to this stuff, and they're seeing these things and feeling these things, and I can't imagine or know,
I've been
and
listening to some stuff that goes down that alley lately. I've been listening to some psychiatry stuff or some meaning of life kind of stuff that's going over my head. It's stretching my brain. Mm-hmm. But this stuff about like our experience is only what's happening here. I really, what's going on over there, like what Dad is experiencing right this moment.
Right. I know, right?
It may not even be happening. Because the only thing I know is what's right here.
Right.
Walk out of this shop and go in the house. Do I even know there's a shop out here? Was it like a
right.
Simulation?
Yeah, now you're like getting into a hole.
Yeah.
Well, it is. I mean, and that kind of speaks a little bit to how, like, we talk about manifesting things. And, like, I was saying about everything's vibration and it's just when you really get into the science of it, it is so freaking fascinating and amazing.
So, today, while we're sitting in that meeting, did you see that centipede?
Yeah.
It was going across the other side of the room, and I thought that centipede, and I did it just out of fun. I said, come back over here and I'll let you out. Come back over here. And then in a little while, it came back.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I love that.
And I really am beginning to be convinced there's some reality that we can bend.
Oh, there's no doubt in my mind. Like,
And I really think that's what happened there. Mm-hmm. And I think if I put my intentions towards that, that's what I was saying earlier about this stuff about like where your intentions are in this work means everything.
Absolutely.
If you're just going through the motions,
I get mad at myself because I know that to be true, and I'm like, God, but it takes a lot.
Yep.
It's not just
my self-employment, this wood shop.
Yep.
This wood shop manifested out of my wishes with really no cost to me.
No, if you really do take hold, that is what, I forget who said it, but that is basically our point of being here on this earth in the human form, is to learn how to manipulate energy.
Yep.
And if you really do start to look into that concept,
that's what I mean. That's the kind of things I'm listening to.
Yeah. No,
lately. It's there's these dudes having unreal level talk. One guy was telling the other day talking about remote viewing, that he had a college professor that put these people in different rooms and would put numbers up on the wall. Yeah. And these people would get like energetically connected. And he could sit here and tell them that that's a number 5 on the wall.
Absolutely. They have like children because they're just more receptive and, able to like...
Been squashed, just TSSR. We ain't been stepped on yet.
Right. No, that they can sit there with their eyes closed and go through and tell you what color something is.
Yeah.
I know all that to be true. Seriously, like even scientifically, and I like.
Yeah, and still can't practice it.
But yeah, it's hard. It's not. It just like these steps.
Mm-hmm.
They're simple, but they are hard. Knowing
what
work
to do and doing it.
Oh yeah, definitely.
That's the thing. You can
know all day long what to do.
You can recite the big book, have it memorized, and it really won't do you any good.
Right.
It's one of the things I heard somebody talk about that, and it hit me hard enough now that when I see somebody recite anything out of the big book, big stuff, not just making little quotes.
Right.
If they do it off memory, I actually look at that as like almost like in a dogma kind of standpoint that like you shouldn't do that. You should read it, because knowing it don't mean shit.
No, it doesn't. And I know nothing.
Yeah, and I almost wonder like that's camouflage right there.
Yeah, they're telling them, that's a way of them saying that they know all this stuff, but they really know it.
Yeah.
I could memorize something and do the same thing, but am I living it?
People memorize the Gettysburg Address, right?
Yep.
They don't mean they know a thing about it.
Shit. No. And that, again, I feel like that is sort of like a...
No, the only guy I'll give an exception to is I do know a blind guy who recites some of the stuff when he gets given a reading, and that's actually impressive to me.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
That is really neat.
First time I saw him do it, he had it upside down and backwards, and he was holding it in front of him. He looks like he pretends like he's reading it.
That's awesome.
Yeah. He runs around Louisville. A lot of people know him. Yeah.
Wow. That's incredible.
Yep. Met him at the Token 3. A lot of people know him.
Yeah, there's some amazing people in recovery in this town.
Yep.
You know, I feel like when we were talking about just what TSSR is in comparison to just AA, I was thinking about the meeting Burns Brady used to have on Wednesday nights, and anybody, you know, kind of was welcome with any kind of, you know, and he would go line by line in the big book, and it was incredible.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I do when it just, I guess my appreciation as a writer, but also just like, you know, that there had to have been a higher power helping Bill write this stuff.
Has to be.
I mean, it's just like, it's phenomenal.
My big one is, and I don't know, it seems big to me, so I love hanging my hat on this hook, is that book requires a guide to take you through it.
Oh, no doubt.
You read that book on its own, it has very low value. I mean, there's good stuff in it.
There's good stuff in it, but to
in order to
actually
get
understand,
it, you must have a guide. And
yeah.
I don't think there's a human being could write a book that required a guide, that had to be divinely inspired.
Oh, there's no doubt.
That
I mean, there's
you couldn't write. I don't think you could write a book like that, not unless it was meant to be. You know, you could write a manual, but that's not what the big book is. It's not a manual.
No, there's just an intensity of thought of
and you have to
action,
have somebody
of,
walk you through it.
Of what are
forces
in those
connection
words
in
and
order to
sentences.
get the results of what it promises.
It truly is amazing, and that's I mean, I have thought a lot over the last year too how like crappy it is if you don't get like a good sponsor, or if you don't get, because to teach you, to guide you, to really give some meaning to some of this
every little
important
crook
stuff.
and cranny in there. And I feel like this gift I've got, you know, today is that I still take alcoholics through the big book, but I deliver them TSSR while I'm doing it.
Yeah.
And I don't need the TSSR book. You don't have to read it. I can guide you through there just because of the tribal knowledge that's been passed down to me and now written. It's still the methodology behind it that's
Well, just
the power.
talking about the forgiveness aspect that's talked about in the TSSR book, and it's
and that's totally missing out of the big book.
Oh my! And it's almost hilarious thinking about like my Catholic background. It's just like, well, you're supposed to forgive. It's like, well, how the fuck do I forgive?
Yeah.
You know, it's just like I do not use the word hate like at all. Like it is reserved for like probably use it just with a couple, just one or two people. But I'm saying like, how, if that you despise somebody so much, how do you forgive? And it's just, I don't even know how to word it, because I do get excited when I think about the TSSR and what it really fleshes out and what it's saying. And it's just like, if you don't read it, and if you know about it and don't read it, then you're completely missing out.
Yeah.
You know, it just is like, and it's just funny because it even like, I didn't even think to ask that question, but that's a good question to ask, you know?
Yep.
It's like, and I'm glad I'm getting it answered. Just so much missing out. It really, you know, and I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's hard to, you know, you can lead somebody to something, but you can't make them like, I love the
water and drink thing.
Yeah.
April said in here, she said, and I didn't never heard it said that way, is that you could lead a duck to water.
And not make them swim, or what?
No, I think it's drinking. But
I've never heard the duck one either.
me either. I think it got conflated with the water off a duck's back.
Oh, okay. Got the horse and the duck got mixed.
Yeah.
That's funny.
But I certainly am not going to be one to sit around and criticize people like that, because I come off with all kinds of things.
Yeah.
I don't have any idea what I'm saying.
Right.
I'm just trying to communicate.
Right. Oh, I get some of those so wrong sometimes. Like, I got the one about the toilet so wrong, and like, the person I was talking to was just busting out laughing for like 5 minutes because I couldn't think about like sitting on the pot or some crap, and then pun intended. But yeah, I mean, if there's one takeaway, I guess, or something a message that I would, you know, love for people to hear at the end of this podcast is, you know, one, you don't have to go back out there. You don't. And 2, write it down. I know nothing. And then jump in, you know, and go and follow the people that have done it before, and I heard the words happy, joyous, and free. I don't know how, over and over and over again. And I joked that they were like those laugh, love, learn, like placards that you see all over the place. It's like in that commercial, like, why do you have to write it down? Because they didn't, happy, joyous, and free didn't really mean a lot to me. And then this last year, I'm like, I finally get these fucking words. Mm-hmm. Like I was starting to write my testimony about TSSR, and I was like, oh my gosh. Happy, joyous, and fucking free.
Yep.
They're real. They're true. They have substance, but it does take some work to get there. It does take some work to get there.
Yep.
But it's...
You have to awaken.
You do.
You just can't, it's like a big cloud around you otherwise. And until you shed that weight, which the 12 steps will do, you can't see through the cloud. And, those words don't mean anything. And
you
all
don't
those
know that you're not
quaint little
awake.
cliches in there. I love them. I hate them and love them at the same time.
Mm-hmm. I know. And this last year, I've always hated all those cliches. And then I find myself, I'm like, well, there really isn't an easy way to say it. Yeah.
Yep, they finally, and I heard them ad nauseum. And now and again, you'll see an internet argument come up or something, and they will talk about the slogans and all of that, and you'll see people poo-pooing it. Oh, it's the dumbest thing in the world, but it's like,
but they were
really. Those are actually pretty cool, and they're true if you'll do this work.
If you do exactly, and that's how I know I really didn't understand it or was missing a whole lot.
Yeah, you get radar, like I said, about being able to read new sponsees and stuff, and you can walk in someplace and know if somebody's really done this work or not.
Oh, absolutely.
And when I say really, I mean really. Mm-hmm. And I think certain people pick sponsors on purpose that haven't.
Right.
Self-sabotage.
Yeah.
Because they don't really want a good sponsor.
Don't. Right. It's like, well, now I can get by.
And I also have, and they're not processing that. That's a disease. That's the parasite that's hijacked their operating system. They don't know they're doing that. Mm-mm. And then what they get later on is the excuse of what you and I sat here and did earlier and went around. I've worked the steps.
Yeah.
With the sponsor. It didn't work.
I did it. It didn't work.
It didn't work.
Yeah. You guys are full of shit.
But if you go back and drill down into that, and then people, people pick subpar sponsors and half-assed the work.
Yeah.
And those two, that is not our recipe. That is not our recipe. Mm-mm. And I'm not saying, I'm going to be careful about subpar because you do have to be a little bit
I was going to
careful
say
about
sometimes
that.
like they just don't know what they don't know.
Yeah.
And a sponsor just teaches the way they're their sponsor and then their sponsor.
Yep.
And I mean, like I said, the profoundness of this work in the TSSR is just like, oh my gosh, it crushes me that people are missing this.
Yeah. Yep. You go to meetings and you sit around and you listen to people. I go to step meetings and you hear what people are doing or not doing,
Oh my God. Yeah.
You're doing it wrong.
Yeah.
In one breath, I want to say there's no wrong way to do this. Mm-hmm. In one thing, I want to say there's no wrong way to do it. If you do it, you'll get some results. But there's certainly what I've landed on is that this TSSR is definitely a optimized way of doing it. Mm-hmm. There may be other ways out there that are just as good. I'm not aware of any of them. Mm-hmm. But this is an optimized. That's why I say it's the great compendium, the magnum opus, the Optimus Prime version of the 12 steps.
It is. Well, and I mean, I could go on and on, but I think just also having somebody tell you it is okay not to be over this thing that happened to you, when you were 4 or 5 or 6 or 7, the way our society says, oh, it's so long, we'll get over it. Yep. Or, just to have like permission, to say that really sucked. And then to, share and process it. And
Bob Earl, and he's one of my very favorite speakers. And I got introduced to him this time around, and you was talking about listening to podcasts and that. I wasn't connected with podcasts when I got sober, and they really, even 6 years ago, podcast isn't what it is today.
No, not at all.
But there were speaker tapes out there.
Oh, and
tons of speaker tapes, and I got addicted to them, man, on the internet.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I know the speaker tapes. There was actually tapes.
Tapes. No, that's what I'm saying. When I first got into sobriety, I actually had
tapes. But by the
tapes.
time I got here, I found some wonderful souls pointed me to the magnificent library that is on the internet today of hundreds of thousands of speaker tapes.
Yeah.
And there's way beyond Joe and Charlie. I'm talking about you throw a name up in there, I'll find you a speaker.
Yeah.
Susan, Jane, Tim,
Scott.
Yeah. But one of my favorites is
Earl.
Bob Earl, and he said, "You can't sit here and tell me that I need to go out and forgive what." Now I lost the thing. That you can't tell me that I got to go out and make amends for everybody that I did wrong, and let the people off the hook that did me wrong. And I said that just doesn't compute to him.
It doesn't compute, right? How do you expect?
And it was just like what you said. We have to accept that what they did was wrong and all that. And we will. There's a way to work to forgiveness.
Right.
But he was talking about early in his time in AA, they told you, the things that was done to you didn't matter.
Right, exactly.
And we allow space and processing for the things that,
and I think that is
was
another
done to
huge
you
aspect.
here. And that's one of the reasons, that some of the stuff in here about like only doing a 4-step on resentments, only resentments. Basically when I have a guy do a 4-step, I tell him to write down everything that had impact on your life.
That was another part of now that you're saying that, like I said, I could go on and on, but that's another part.
Or,
like things that
everything.
Right.
What made you you? That's what we're really looking for in this inventory.
Right.
Bill was right, and the guidance in the beginning, resentments is a good starting point. Mm-hmm. But if you can bite off, if you can eat more of the elephant in one sitting, why not do it? And let's get the most bang for the buck the first time through this work.
Yeah.
And if you do that thoroughly, and I think what ends up happening in like that other way is that you're 10 years sober and you're digging in the same pile that we dig in today. We dig into it on day one. Mm-hmm. And it says we made a list of the people of who we were angry.
Right. Well, and like
I can
had
let
never
a lot of people off the hook on that one.
Written down.
I wasn't angry at my mom.
Right. Well, and I realized by doing this work that, oh my gosh, I sort of was brought up to not be allowed to be angry at my mom. You're not upset. You can't be mad at your mother. Yep. So it's like, I did not realize until I did that reading and started. And then I had never written down a girl that started an I Hate Katherine club in 4th grade. And then I realized that, like, there have been often times in my life, it didn't matter how amazing I did, how awesome, it still didn't work out. Yep. Or I was still either ridiculed or things, like, went bad. So it's just like, so the message was, didn't matter how freaking fantastic I was, shit was still not going to work out for me. Yeah. Which is a horrible way to go through life. Yeah.
And, that's where this stuff is kind of cryptic because Bill said, we're going to do a fact-finding and fact-facing process. That I agree with that. He says we're looking for causes and conditions. And then down here, only people he's going to let you look at are the ones you're mad at.
Right. It's like, wait a minute.
It's in there. Mm-hmm. It just needs to be dug out deeper. And, and I know people who have, the people they harmed weren't on their 4th step because they're only directed to do that when it says made a list of those who we harmed in 8.
Right.
And they don't do the work on those people in 4-step. All they're doing is making a list and going out and trying to fix it by 8.
Right.
But they don't get any of this causes and conditions effects of what that actually did to you and what your part was in all that. Mm-hmm. And I've seen those divisions made, and I think that's like, you're missing it. Mm-hmm. Will it work? Probably.
Yeah.
If you're going to if I got cancer and there's 5 treatments out there, give me the best one.
Right. Exactly.
I don't want diet chemo.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, that's something that I thought about too. And I think about, like, we had a doctor for Eli here in Louisville. And then it changed his life. 3 weeks later, we went to Cincinnati, and it's like, God damn, if you don't have the right doctor, if you don't have the right, like, work. So what I'm saying is just like, it's
in here too.
Yeah, it is. I mean,
that's another Bob Earl thing. Bob Earl said, if you come to ask me to drive you to a doctor in Cleveland, I'd jump in the car and take you up there. But if I got something wrong with me, I'm going down to urgent care at the corner.
Right. Definitely. We don't. Yeah.
I'll do it for you. but I won't take care of me that way.
Right. Well, and again,
I'll be okay.
Right. Yeah. Or maybe, some story people tell themselves is I'm not deserving of that.
Yeah, right. That is exactly where he's going with that you don't deserve it.
So
I love his one story. He's talking about he's going down the road. And we've got some guy he knows had just bought what we call a racehorse that you buy off this. You know anything about horse racing?
I do a little bit, but
What's
I'm trying to.
A stakes or horse or some kind of
that you buy that have you
buy
buy them
it
off
on
the track.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's a stakes. Is it?
It seems right, and I've lost it.
It sounds right.
Well, he buys one of them. His buddy does. And
Yeah.
He's got a horse trailer, and he's driving down the interstate doing 40 mile an hour. And he says, hey, why are you driving so slow? He said, I've never had something this valuable in my vehicle before. And then Bob said, goddamn, dude, what about me?
Yeah.
Not to mention him.
You? Yeah.
And watch people drive, too. And I used to be this way. I drove safer when I had other people in the car than I did when it's just me.
Yeah.
Because I'll take chances when it's just me.
Yeah.
What's that say for my self-worth?
Right. Exactly.
This stuff will dig you down into that kind of thought, where I start valuing me today.
Well, and
drinking yourself to death is the epitome of not valuing me.
Right. You teach others how to treat you by the way you treat yourself.
Yeah. I am not worth preserving. I'll just go ahead and drink myself to death.
Yeah. And you get down into those messages that told you that.
Yeah.
Whether they were, by accident or inadvertently or,
Yeah, like I said, it's not a blame game. It's a
fact-finding
and fact-facing process.
Yeah. And that's something I'm still working on is just trying to, navigate letting the people in my life go that are toxic or don't, treat me that, for the value.
Yep.
And the human that I am.
Yep. You're right. And I learned that it's another miracle recovery is to train people the way I'm willing to be treated. Mm-hmm. And set those boundaries and then maintain them.
I can actually remember the conversation I had. It was last October, about, how do I set boundaries now? I'm 39, so these people are used to siblings or parents. I'm used to treating them you just have to start setting them and then repeat them as often as necessary.
There's a meme out there that says something about the people most bothered by your boundaries are the ones you most need them for. The boundaries.
Yep. There was a little while I didn't talk to my mom because she bulldozed right through a boundary. Yep. And I'm like, well, then we can't talk right now. Because I specifically said I do not want to talk about that right now.
Yep.
Or this is none of your business, basically. Or, just things like that. It
gets back to that self-worth thing. I'm worth it.
Right.
To me.
Well, exactly. It doesn't matter,
Another thing I heard someplace, and I think it was Bob Earl, he said, we sit in here and we say the newcomer's the most important person in the room, but I disagree. I am the most important person in this room.
That's awesome.
And if I don't hold myself in that regard, and it kind of goes contrary to a lot of the teachings that I got growed up with in AA to some extent, and I'm 10 years now that I've been, March would have made 10 years of my exposure in AA. And I was told that they were the most important people, and this is,
right.
That I basically got to lay my head on the guillotine in order to be a part of this club. And I've been taught otherwise since.
Yeah. And again, that goes in the mixed messaging that we get. It's just like you're supposed to be successful, but don't dare, compliment yourself for it, in your breath. It's like, what?
Yeah, and we still have a little of that. We still have, watch, the person that comes in and has just had a hard luck thing happen to them, we will give them a lot more attention than the person comes in and celebrates a win. Mm-hmm. Some hard luck thing, lost their wife, kids in the hospital, we'll throw compassion all over them, which they deserve. I'm not saying they don't.
Right.
But when somebody comes in, just got the new job, now TSSR is better than that. And
I was going to say, I love the new burning desire.
It's better than it used to be, but it still exists where the person who is crashing will get way more attention. It's like in the Senator Bob Earl thing. Somebody comes in there and has lost their wife and their car and their job, and somebody in the meeting take you out to eat. You come in there and just got a promotion.
Got a new car.
Yeah. Has just bought a new car. You're expected to buy them supper.
Exactly.
We don't celebrate.
Well, and it's weird you're saying that because, again, like that's what my mom always said. I never knew you needed any help, because I always just figured it out and did it on my own.
Yep.
I mean, I figured out my own financial aid for college and just,
Yep.
da-da-da-da. But then I saw my part, though, too, because I never asked for help. I never said, hey, I'm drowning over here.
Yep.
So, and...
Kind of goes hand in hand with that, maybe I'm not responsible for the trauma that happened to me as a child, but I'm damn well responsible for having carried it around as a victim for 30 years or whatever it is.
And letting it affect my
That
present.
is me.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's also easier to sit there and make other people excuses, especially like...
It's always easy to be the victim. It's the easy way out. The martyr or the victim. Mm-hmm. Those are most people's core, almost core values. I'm gonna be a martyr or a victim.
Mm-hmm. And again, it's easier to cop out. Like, there's so much that I learned doing this, like, fourth and fifth stuff. Like, I always kind of blame my mom for not... I was in Air Force ROTC, offered all this scholarship, going to be all this stuff, and she said she didn't, want me to do it. But in fact, if I really look back at that, when they asked us if we were willing to die for our country, I was like,
Nope.
I'm like, eh. And so, again, but in my mind, for years and years, she was the reason. Yeah. And then I'm like, wait a minute.
So Bill's line in there says these things fancied or real. Mm-hmm. Right? Some of them are real, but some of them we made them up ourselves. And everybody's got a bunch of, not a bunch, I will say I have. I got a pocket full of lies that I've been telling myself to the point that I believed them until I did this work.
Yep.
And I would go down swinging, telling you that was the truth.
Oh, absolutely.
I talked myself into it.
Mm-hmm. And we all do.
I told the lie so many. That's why I was starting to say everybody, but I thought I would throw it back at me.
Yeah.
We tell ourselves a lie so long that we believe it, and it becomes another line. We can't tell the true from the false.
Mm-hmm. It's dangerous, too, because it's that kind of stuff that ends up killing us.
Yeah. And crushing other people.
Yep.
I think you've been telling a lie about this other person that did this to you all your life. Mm-hmm. No telling how many hundreds of people you've told that to. That now look at that person in different eyes because of your lie.
Yeah.
Ruin reputations. Yeah, but you think that person's a good person, but you ought to hear what her daughter said about her.
Oh, God. Well, the thing is it a lie, though? If it's that, even though it's a delusion, like you said, I don't know.
Justification.
It's sort of, yeah, exactly.
It still did the damage that it did.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter why.
It's very true.
Again, when I say I can't blame myself necessarily either. It's not a blame game, but it certainly had an impact on somebody's life. Mm-hmm. Some story I'm carrying around.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's,
playing every time the game got, every time somebody got out some cards. Well, it's another analogy I have is people have these cards. And they're, I got victim A card, B card, and we're going to sit around and shoot the shit, and we all get our cards out. Well, you ought to see what happened to me.
Yeah.
Well, this person over here, they got...
You're always one-upping, or it's like it was worse for me, or yeah.
Keith Lewis says,
yeah.
My mama had one square nipple.
My mama had 3.
All right, well, let's conclude this thing up. You kind of did a concluder a little bit ago, but give you. Oh
gosh, open and honest, working the steps.
Took me 4 years before I finally had a revelation. I thought, by God, you know what I'll do this time? I'll get a sponsor and work the steps. Scott Lisa. You know what a revelation is, don't you?
Yeah.
It's what they've been telling you for years, and when it becomes your idea, it's a revelation.
Yeah, it is amazing how like I said in this last year, all the things that I'd heard, read, were told, just were like, oh my God, I won't say I had it all this time because TSSR is that much different, and it is a whole different kind of getting it, than I'd had before. But, there's still a lot that I still didn't do. Yeah. So, and just don't put anything else in front of it. So, yeah, that's the other, my kids know it's a meeting night. He's only 6.
Yep.
So,
and they will reap the rewards of that beyond their or our understanding.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the other, just not teach these cycles, hopefully not.
Yeah. It's all good and well that this program came along and swept up my 45-year-old ass and fixed me. How can we not break them?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't really know if that's possible because at some level I believe that's life.
It is.
Get broken and figure out how to heal.
Yeah, because even something that you didn't even think was like a thing is a thing for them, or something
goes into
that you
the Buddhist philosophy of the life is suffering kind of stuff. It's just it is, and our job is to overcome it. And the hero's journey says, Joseph Campbell's deal says, bad stuff's going to happen to you, and your job is to heal from it, and then go back and help help other people across the same bridge you crossed.
Yeah.
So that's what I try to do today. Mm-hmm. This podcast is one way I try to do that. All our stories are valuable, and when you tell your story, you give somebody permission to tell theirs, and be able to rewrite their story, because without us sitting out here doing this, that's the whole fundamental premise of AA, is this is what happened to me.
Yep.
And if I can make it out, you can too.
And we're not bad people. We're just sick people.
We're not bad people trying to be good. We're sick people trying to get well.
Yep.
Cool.
All righty.
I appreciate your time here. It was fun. The microphone disappeared after a little while, just like I told you.
Yeah, well, it's really surreal. I just thought of all the times I've listened to this, mowing the lawn last year, and and they're now actually sitting in this chair.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my gosh, I'm here.
Yeah, I think it's funny that I really appreciate, and it humbles me that people actually feel that it's a honor to be here in a way.
It is.
Because I'm just some yahoo hillbilly in New Albany that had a couple of microphones and a computer. And
well, this microphone and computer taught me a lot and allowed me to hear a lot of voices that I needed to hear.
Yeah, and I just had a reminder pop up on my telephone. I got another one at 8 o'clock.
You're kidding.
A Zoom one.
Oh, look at you.
Yeah, I forgot about that. I had to go in and get hooked up on the internet and do that. Good thing that we started ending now. Well, this thing popped up. And if it hadn't, I would have forgot about this. It's in my calendar, but I missed it.
Well, at least you didn't miss it entirely.
Nope, I haven't missed it yet.
Yeah.
I'm not
so
late yet.
Miss it. You're not, so you got to get going, though.
So we'll see y'all in a little bit. But I'll close this with the same thing. I close it every time. I say a prayer before this, and that's working. And I close with the same thing. And the one thing I have learned to do today is when something's working, keep doing it. And if something ain't working, stop. Those are two pretty good lessons.
Those are.
So if you're not having a blast in your recovery, it's your own damn fault.
It's your own damn fault.
And thank you all for allowing Katherine and I to participate in our recoveries in this manner tonight. Peace out.
Peace.